Hi, I'm Jasmine Burton, and welcome. Oh, yeah.
No, there's two of us, but let's keep going. I'm Elliot Williams. Hi, Jasmine. thanks for canceling me even before we started talking. Like, okay.
We're fighting.
We're fighting.
We're fighting.
You want to fight?
We want to fight.
Well, you know,
Why am I in the middle of this?
I know,
fight?
because
you know why?
You know why? Because this is America, and America loves watching black people fight. It's like literally.
Is my job to call the manager?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Hi, we're here with Karen Winstead, formerly of The Daily Show, talking.
This is better than the intro we had planned.
I made an actual funny person laugh. Look at that.
I like Karen Winstead as just a whole idea.
She does go by Lizz Winstead, one of the founders of The Daily Show.
When I'm not reporting black people for living on the planet.
Exactly. So let's just go for it.
Well, welcome to the Ask, where we turn questions into action. That's our whole slogan, but it doesn't matter now. We are.
That ship has sailed.
That ship has sailed.
We are so happy to have you. Before we get into the weeds of all of the work that you do, your comedy, the organization that you founded, I want to know how a small town girl from Minnesota became interested in comedy.
You know, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and by a lot of years, like Catholic family. I mean, like there was 4 girls and a boy, and then there was nothing for 6 years, and then I think it was like maybe drunken sex, and let's try for another boy, and then
as one is want to do,
and then it was like, and then it was me, and so just I think fighting for airtime, honestly, was like because I first wanted to be a priest because I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that a priest every Sunday could like be on the altar and speak uninterrupted for like an hour, and also saying things that I was not particularly interested in, and people like them anyway. So I was like, that job seems kind of easy. That person's a bore on talking for an hour, and then everyone's like, you were great. So then when I found out that was not the case, I was not allowed to do that.
I feel like the Catholic Church has been producing content producers and radicalizing people since 30 AD. Like it's really quite good as a muse.
You know,
right?
It's true because when you think about it, when rules are arbitrary and you tell a child an arbitrary rule, you are building somebody who is like, but you need explanation as a child. You can't just say no, they need explanation. Yeah. So when something is like, can I be an altar boy or can I be a priest? And it's like, no. And it's like, but why? And if you can give a kid an explanation that makes sense, they'll usually let it go, or you should give them a cookie.
Yeah.
But every explanation was like, women can't be this. I was like, one time a priest literally said to me when I wanted to be an altar boy, I was like, I'd like to be an altar boy. And they're like, well, they're called altar boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that seems fixable. Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, you just say altar girl or server.
Right.
Server.
Acolyte, right.
Yeah. And so, I just feel like as a woman who had interests that at that time were gendered, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be a paper boy. I don't like children in particular. I didn't want to babysit.
Paper acolyte.
Paper acolyte would have been great. Also I wanted to be an altar boy, acolyte, because those boys, when they were serving, were making bank. Like at a wedding, you would make $10. Wow. To babysit, you'd make like $3 for a whole night. Wow. So they get all these tips. So I was like, I want to do that. And so I think I just was turned down religious-wise, and then it just kind of carried on. Stand-up-wise, no one's begging women or queer people or anybody to be standing on stage and like sucking, having opinions.
Yeah.
You have to sort of take that.
Having spent my entire childhood as an altar boy, I can vouch you do make bank at weddings, funerals. They'll even pay you.
Yes.
Too.
Oh wow.
They really will. Now,
yes.
I'll quote someone who I'm certain is a mentor and guide of yours, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. I know such a.
I don't know if you know this. We went to the opera together.
No doubt. He loved going to the opera with liberal women. This is true.
Yeah.
But you're touching on a beautiful point here, which is that in children, and almost in the rule of law, children can accept rules that are inconsistent but not arbitrary, right? Yes. And your brother gets a piece of cake, but you don't because I say so, is very different than, well, there's only one piece of cake and it's his birthday, right? And so you need to have some framework in some way. And that's really interesting how it ties into your own childhood. Like, this explanation made no sense and wasn't fair and was arbitrary, not reason.
Well, and it's also, too, learning what justice is in these little tiny child ways. And then that just expands exponentially as you grow as a person and you develop a friend group, or you see injustices that become larger to people that you love. And then every time you see that, you see that person not on their path to their destiny for arbitrary reasons.
Fascinating.
And so for me, it was like, we can't make arbitrary okay. Arbitrary needs to feel like when someone says 2 + 2 = 5.
Right.
Like, it has to be like, you can never make that make sense for me. And so I will challenge that at all costs, because that constant feeling of it doesn't make sense, and am I the person that is, you feel gaslit, and you can't function and have a good society if there's this constant tumult. And I feel like, as we have watched, that's been happening for a long time. And I always like to say that is way pre-Trump. Like, we need to accept our own responsibilities about what that feels like. A foundation was set to allow this to happen. And we really need to address that foundation has black mold, and who's responsible for that black mold.
Wow.
What's fascinating to me is the word choice that you used when speaking about stage. What infatuated you with being on stage was that you wanted to be there in a space where you were uninterrupted.
Yes.
It seems like all of those like instances that were happening in your life, whether that was like the little no, or even Elliot's example, potentially your brother getting something that you weren't allowed to do, made you want to go to stage where you cannot be interrupted for not even just 5 minutes, but upwards of an hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it's just like masochistic or something, but I also have this need, and stand-up was a deliberate choice. I had this need to say what I think, and it was a way for me to just weed out the herd of who agree. I want to know all the time, who do I need to grow the base with? Who's with me? Who's good? Who's in the middle of, like, I kind of like what you're saying. I like you, but I need to talk further. And then who are just like the garbage humans. So I'm like, you're just over here and I can't change your mind and you're just going to be this, so done. But I don't know. I really like knowing where I stand.
Yeah.
And in stand-up, every night, you just find out where you stand.
Yeah. Let's talk about comedy as a political platform and talk about The Daily Show too. And look, I got a prop here, which is pretty about, as I was literally walking in today, we have The Onion. Tim Walz unveils new retro futurist persona after feeling boxed in by folksy image. I am Artemis, announces governor. And look, there's something powerful in this, in that they're tapping into the persona of Tim Walz, the Minnesota stuff we were talking about earlier. But this is using comedy to not just make people laugh, but to convey some sort of political message. And we'd love to hear you on sort of founding The Daily Show, the point behind it, and what do you think that platform did?
Well, I mean, the point behind it for me was sort of twofold. One was there was no challenging of the power structure, whether that's corporate power structure or political power structure. And the larger part was, you know, I was always a political person, but I really got radicalized in the first Gulf War in 91. When I watched the media, it was like Meet the Press could have been called Meet the Press Release, right, from the government. So it was like I just didn't believe the media. And I would see these tricks in the media, and I did a one-woman show about the media and what we need to look for. And so I wanted people to, comedy's a way to say, if this seems weird to you, it probably is, right? And I'm not saying weird in a Tim Walz sense. I'm saying weird that's a Minnesota thing. Like, that's not a Tim Walzism. That's a Minnesotaism, by the way. So people need to know that. So,
Noted.
Yeah,
noted, right.
He's just bringing it. So in sort of doing it with humor and facts, you have this 1-2 punch. You bring people in, because I firmly believe that, if you can make somebody laugh, because laughter is involuntary, right? It's involuntary joy. So if you make someone laugh, they like you, even if it's for a second, there is a connection of humanity, right? Also, if you are making somebody laugh in the darkest of times, they haven't given up hope. If inadvertent joy can come out of you, it means somebody still has that emotionality to fight another day. So the importance of it for me is tapping into those two things.
And it's probably one of the few universal human impulses.
Yes.
Laughter, music,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
We had folks from Policy Link here talking about love as a universal value. Everybody loves their family. I mean,
Yes.
now, look, families end up being all fucked up, but
Right.
but at the end of the day, we come from places and have ones that we love, and it's one of the few things that everybody shares.
Well, also, we forget about including the serotonin release. Like there's like literal physical good that comes from laughing. It like releases endorphins and it brings you whole. You're open chested. You're exposing your vulnerability, which is also your strength, right? So I think all those things are really cool. And to be able to bring information in a new way, I mean, to me, we didn't do it for a long time. And on the Daily Show, we were, big issues, but also, the setback for me on that show was the network executives would say to me all the time, remember, we're a comedy show.
Yeah.
We're not activists. And I was like, but I am. And so a lot of times what would happen is we could present something in a really funny way that was like tragic or dark and get people riled up about it, but the call to action, we weren't allowed.
Huh.
So then I started just feeling like an anger fluffer.
Oh wow! You know what wasn't on my bingo board today?
Anger.
I think fluffers of any kind.
Yeah.
But particularly angle fluffers. But proceed. Yes,
so then that's when I was like, I want to be able to say, I'm going to get you riled up with humor and let you know what's happening. And then when somebody feels hopeless, be able to come in and say, and here's what you can do about it. That was what was missing from my career. And that's why I took this 180 of just combining it all together.
You've actually mentioned that you're pretty outspoken about the balance of comedy and activism. I remember your quote in the Rolling Stone when you said, my first moment of shredding myself of fucks to give is when I told my abortion story on Comedy Central in 1992. And you also said that it was the first time you realized that the media isn't a place where activism thrives.
Right.
And that's what made you kind of, as you mentioned, take your pivot into a new direction. How has it been kind of finding that balance between what you can say, what you can't, using comedy as a medium to deliver messages in a way people want to receive?
Right. Well, I think trying to get into traditional media when you can, but understanding that that's going to be a rarity. So creating your own set of circumstances that non-traditional media will pick up. Really TikTok influencers, Instagram influencers, us becoming influencers in and of itself. And the amount of time that I spend out on the road talking to folks about abortion, being at clinics, doing shows with 300-400 people in a room, and then having conversations, not just comedy and music on stage, but with the providers and the activists in those towns, and seeing how regular folks feel and talk about abortion, and taking that to the media resources we have available to us where nobody can censor us, and then watching that go viral, hopefully will send a message to media and also elected people who say they care about this issue and say, don't talk to political consultants about how you want to frame abortion. Watch these people. Listen to the people on the ground, because there's a real disconnect between politicians a lot of times and what people are thinking.
Yeah.
It's regular folks who created these ballot initiatives because they looked inside themselves and said, I know someone who's had an abortion, I've had an abortion, I've been silent about it, but I know what my life is like because that access was provided to me.
Yeah.
They're the one, not politicians.
Yeah.
And so watch that.
Yeah.
When Arkansas, you got 100,000 people on a ballot being like, hello, this is Kansas. And so the work, when we talk about Kansas and some of these other states, is people overwhelmingly vote for abortion or reproductive freedom in their state, but they don't understand how their state got to this backward spot. So they will vote for the politicians who put those bills in place. You know how people like to balance a ticket, regular folks. So they think they're balancing the ticket by voting to enshrine abortion, but then also voting for the very candidates and people who might share socially conservative other values that they have. So they're voting for the people who created the laws. In the first place.
You talked a little bit about
insane.
sort of, I think, caution on the part of politicians or whatever it might be, that the energy is from grassroots, but the politicians aren't quite there.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about?
I think it's about, when Roe happened in 1973, we had a little sweet spot of people talking about abortion. If you were a teen, you could go have an abortion in a state, right? It was happening. I think sexism across the board from both parties. I cannot tell you how many times I would have elected officials who are Democrats or activists who are from spaces that are gigantic women's organizations say, when you say abortion, it alienates people. We want to talk in euphemisms. So our side decided to take on some language of anti-abortion people, would just say things like, I'm pro-choice, not pro-abortion. And so when you say nobody loves abortion, no one likes abortion, what we've discovered in our traveling and in our work is that the people providing the care feel a lot of shame. And they feel like they have to hide. People who've had abortions feel like, I can't talk about it. And I say to anybody who says, I actually don't know anyone who's had an abortion, I would say, how do you actually talk about abortion, even if you're pro-choice? Because you may be saying language that you just absorbed and think that it sounds fine.
Yeah.
But what it is language that somebody who's had an abortion hears and doesn't feel comfortable confiding in you.
What's really interesting along all of those lines is watching the Democratic convention this week in terms of how that topic is handled. Bill Clinton was on, so we're recording this on Thursday morning. Bill Clinton was on last night. Bill Clinton having maybe not pioneered, but been a proponent of the safe, legal, and rare
The
messaging
most shameful language.
from the 1990s.
Yes.
Yet you have a nominee, and frankly, there was an evening of people using the word abortion again and again and again on the first night. Was that the Steve Bashir night? I think it was the first night. And the governor of Kentucky, I think, using the word abortion too. It's a different. Now, to be clear, it doesn't seem that the party is totally uniform in the messaging on it, because I don't think Tim Walz said the word. I think he said reproductive care. Or reproductive
He said abortion
health.
last night.
Did he say it? Okay, good. All right, yeah.
He said reproductive care.
Sorry.
Okay, Walz.
Yeah.
But also,
No, but you see what I mean, though.
Right, but I also don't have a problem with saying reproductive care as long as you're including abortion in that and not saying things like abortion's not the only thing we do.
Right.
Or things like that. That's like, right? So, because reproductive care can mean many things.
Right.
IVF, contraception, yada,
Right,
yada.
of course.
And so, including abortion in it is that. And I want to say that when we launched Abortion Access Front, we launched under a different name, Lady Parks Justice, but when we launched, part of our big mission was to change that framing. And I'm really proud to watch that framing change because of the work we did. We've done stigma workshops, and it's been really fascinating to have people come around, and when you talk to them and you realize that it's a community good to be able to have let's say the 16-year-old who is pregnant and their value system says, I would like to raise this child. We should provide resources as a society for that person. Conversely, the 35-year-old person who's got two kids can't economically raise another, wants to thrive with the family they have. Let's honor that person's abortion choice so that we can say we honor all pregnancy outcomes, because that's what like the richness of who we are looks like. To say, oh my God, I trust you. You've assessed your family and your capacities, and we want to help you thrive in all of that, because you need to be part of this fabric of where we live. And so that's our jam.
And that's what's fascinating also in the messaging is the Democrats taking the term freedom over. And it came up a bunch last night, including in Tim Walz's speech, about you can make your choices with respect to your family or your reproductive or whatever else it might be, but that's not up to you to decide what other families ought to be doing. And it's a really interesting reframing of something that was a pretty distinctly conservative concept, at least 4 years ago. Even.
Also, isn't it, I'm going to say weird, because I know it sounds
Minnesota?
like... Yeah.
Minnesota? We're going to eat Spam after this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not eating that.
You're the smart one.
I know. She's a coastal elite who's thumbing her nose.
Yeah,
at the
flyover
upper Midwest.
country.
Dare you?
But isn't it weird that your family must be so fragile if you think that how someone else is thriving could destroy your family. A family in some other state doing some other shit is so threatening to your family. You work on your own family, friend, because your family's got a lot of problems. If there's strangers out there in the world having families and living their lives, and that shit's, and that you're raising fragile children, that they cannot read books about the history of this country to help them understand how we got here, so we don't go back there.
Yeah.
Like, I read books as a child about our fucked up foundation. And when I learned about it, I didn't want to be part of that mess, right? But if you never introduce the mess and you just have this weird white excellence vibe going.
I mean, white people are excellent. I mean, some of my favorite whites are pretty excellent. I mean, you seem above average, like Minnesota.
Here's what I am. I am perfectly fine.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah,
good,
I'll
good.
hear you when you go, that was some white shit.
That was some white shit. That was some white shit.
And when you're from Minnesota,
White shit.
if no one's saying that's some white shit to you, you're white supremacist. You actually have a hood on.
Yeah.
I think.
I love it.
It's like
And
very weird.
Abortion is a huge topic of discussion right now. I think it's what a lot of voters are considering when they're going out to the polls.
Yeah.
There's different types of voters. A lot of people are single issue voters, and that one issue is going to be abortion. There's also multi-issue voters, and the one at the forefront of their mind is abortion.
Yeah.
And depending on which way this election goes, it can be on complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
And we were talking about joy earlier, and I'm struggling to evoke that emotion in this moment right now because I have extreme fear and anxiety. How do you feel like the election can really impact your work, and what should voters be thinking about as they're going to the polls with this at the forefront of their brains?
Here's what I think. I think that you being afraid to access your joy is something that's preventing you from being a whole person.
Right.
And also, just like in life, the process of how you do the work keeps you in the work and helps you understand whatever happens, how you know how to take that fight, right? But so allow yourself the joy, include in your activism pieces of joy,
Right.
because it is the number one motivating factor. Because when people say, what do you do for self-care? I'm like, the work, understanding that I can make a difference. And so that's like very important to me. But to answer your question, what people are going to the polls on abortion on both sides, right?
Yeah.
And so what our mission is to really help folks understand what abortion is. Wow, we have not talked about it for so long that the baseline of what people know, not to their fault, but because it's just not talked about. We need to just start there, right? I mean, we're here at the DNC. We've launched a campaign to explain to people what medication abortion is in a way that's like, it's like a pop sensation group where we have the protocol for medication abortion is one medication and then 4 other medications to take later. One is called mifepristone, and the other is called misoprostol. So we created a singing group called Miffy and the misotones, right? So you get the whole idea.
Yeah.
And we took the song I'm Just a Bill, changed it to I'm Just a Pill. And so we're going around singing, and then we're passing out literature about the facts on medication abortion and where you can get it, right? So that don't listen to us. I mean, watch us because it's alarmingly adorable.
No,
Hello. But then read the information, and then you can look at it yourself, right? And so I want people to go to the polls, not only being like, even if you are like a pro-choice voter, really understanding how you can take people who don't know much and help them learn as well along the way, because we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. One question on that before we ask you the big sort of ask question.
Sure.
But you talk about the concept of a pro-choice voter. And let me just tell you an example of one of the guys I clerked with, this conservative, went to Marquette and Notre Dame, Nebraska guy. His parents would basically get these lists of who was opposed to abortion, and they would vote down that list every time. Didn't care.
My mom got that too.
One issue voter, right?
Yep.
And my question is, and that was certainly on the right, for generations, probably since Roe v. Wade, right? Do you think the left or whatever, the pro-choice, pro-abortion, whatever terminology you wish to use,
let's say they
did that for up until 2024? Or to what extent did they?
It has
Good question.
been, churches are such a good place to organize. And I feel like we did not have, for years, we did not have any mechanism of a movement. Because the truth is, when you talk about, I don't even know what we call our movement. Let's call it the reproductive health, rights, and justice movement, for lack of calling it a something.
Right.
We have providers. We have people who are trying to do abortion funds and practical support funding.
Yep.
We have people who do advocacy and legislation work. We have the lawyers who are fighting it in court. But what our movement has lacked, and what we're trying to fill at Abortion Access Front, one of the things, is our version of ACT UP. Because realizing and bringing the discourse that's needed, because our movement has been bringing a PowerPoint presentation to a knife fight for 40 years, right? And until we bring the fight, singing abortion pills is a fight, right? We have massive banners that we've made that are magazine covers with each Supreme Court justice and what their legacy will be. And they're really powerful, right? When we show up, we've reanimated Anthony Comstock, and we bring Anthony Comstock around to talk about the Comstock Act. He's just like, we have a zine. So every time we show up like that, people are like, what is that? What are you doing? And we're disrupting. We need to disrupt on this issue because we've acquiesced for far too long. And so they have always been disruptors. The anti-abortion movement, up until 3 years ago, used the word abortion 4 times more than our side did. Someone did a study.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then what they could go back and say, they won't even say the word. That's how ashamed they are. How do we get our moral high ground back? It's by reframing abortion as a moral issue, allowing people to tell their abortion stories on every spectrum that it happens. If you're somebody who's just like, I don't want to be pregnant, I had an abortion, and abortion pills are amazing, and I'm really glad, and that's fine, matter of fact, to, I'm a little bit on the fence about it, but I know it's right for me,
Right.
to wanted pregnancy and this tragic thing, and I've been left to die. But we can't only tell those stories, because then when we just do that, we are literally saying there's good abortions and there's bad abortions.
You said we're bringing, this is like my favorite quote of this interview, we're bringing PowerPoint presentations to a knife fight.
Yes.
What should be our new weapon of choice?
The confidence in knowing we're right and not wondering what extremists, how they're going to frame what we say. Frame it any way you want. If you have the truth on your side, you never have a problem remembering it, and add a bit of joy. Disarm them. You don't always have to be us and be out there being wild. But when somebody says something horrible about abortion or I'm not this, it's like, wow. I know so many people who've had abortions and they are thriving, and their families are thriving, and I'm so thrilled they got to do that. That is disarming for people. Yeah. Right? Because abortion is a human right and a community good. I cannot say it enough. I just can't say it enough.
Yeah.
Lizz Winstead, thanks so much. Before every parent, I have 2 kids, has a favorite, right?
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, you have twin cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. What's your favorite? What's the preferred, like, non-resented twin of the twins?
Again.
Here we go.
What kind of question is that?
Oh.
Now she's fighting you. It's not black on black crime now.
She'll call the manager, and I'm.
And the reason I say that,
she's coming
this is like one of those, we're having a J.D. Vance moment.
Oh, here we go.
You just asked me that question.
Yeah.
I am wearing a shirt right now that
correct.
says the answer. Now, maybe you're just so not sexist that you weren't looking at my boobs at any point.
Of course, I am just.
But I did walk in proudly wearing a twin.
A twin.
I made a choice. I chose a
But you know
twin.
what?
I chose to wear it here in front of a camera. So let's maybe think of another question.
Okay, but you know what?
That makes you look smarter.
I would even use your rhetoric back on you. She won't even say the word. She can't even say. She's so afraid she can't say St. Paul.
I love that.
Look, I'm a Minneapolis girl,
Love it.
born and bred. I love St. Paul, but you know what? Live right in the heart of the Twin Cities. Live there half the time now. Moved to Brooklyn for many years, so I'm going with Minneapolis, and everybody knows why. But I do have it on my shirt.
I'm teasing.
I know you are.
It's a great town. And I think of the American cities that have ways of managing extreme weather, the hamster tubes are far superior to Houston's underground
They're
anthill.
called skyways for grown-ups.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, but you know what I mean, though.
Yeah,
like
it's so
Houston,
great.
have you been to Houston? They've got it's literally like an ant farm underneath it, where you sort of to avoid all the Houston heat. And Minneapolis is the cool.
Well, that is the cool thing too. People are like, okay, you live half the year in Minneapolis. Of course, it's not winter. And I'm like, no, of course it is winter.
Yeah.
Because I love to snowshoe. I love fires outside. I love, they have these. When a state stays frozen for a long ass period of time, they create activities for outside.
Yeah.
Like a sauna festival. Come on now.
That's hot.
So it's great. It also is, I think what keeps it great is the weather. Because people are like, I just can't deal with that. It's like, you probably can't.
Hey,
Don't come.
Look, we're getting off the rails, but we
We are off the rails.
No, in a good way. In a good
Have
way.
we been on the rails?
We were never on the rails.
We never,
for like
we were.
there's like a 30
Oh
seconds where we
no!
were
Oh hell no! There was a bell curve. There was serious railing in the middle. Okay, so but one we had because we didn't talk about. We did a little social media interview. We're going to put up. We're doing this. You got to talk about the state fair.
Oh my!
Come on, because
Yeah.
it's like real talk, and we'll now we'll be friends again.
When is this airing?
In like 3 days.
Okay. So the Minnesota.
And that's the 24th.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
So
August.
the Minnesota State. So
Yeah.
the Minnesota State Fair is going on right now.
Yes.
It is. If you want to know about our state, it's sort of like deep fried Tim Walls. Okay, so you can go watch animals being birthed. You can eat. So they have a new food at the fair every year. This one is, and this sounds really gross to me, deep fried ranch dressing. And I think ranch dressing is for people who are just too weak to eat blue cheese dressing. But that's just my opinion.
Respect. Someone with New York cred, like respect.
Right. It's like, what are you even doing?
No, it's just.
We should also reclassify it as a beverage in this country because.
My gosh.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
It's an abomination.
you eat all this fried food, it's amazing. But then there's this incredible produce stand where you can get like all this stuff. They make portraits out of people out of grain.
Butter, yeah.
First we'll get to the grain. So what's cool about that is it's like political shit. They were like, all cops are bad cops made out of indigenous seeds, down to, we love our, romper room host portrait. So it is a reflection of who we are politically on every front, and it's incredible. Then you can go, there's Princess K of the Milky Way.
Yep.
Which is a farm princesses who are in real time carved out of butter in a rotating glass freezer so the butter doesn't melt.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's intense.
Oh, it's
Then
a
you
blessed
can go
thing.
get some homemade ice cream. There's a Midway. There's just like weirdos selling knives and cutting up, like Ron Popeil. It is 100,000 people go every year. But you see, and it was designed because it's at this time of the year now because it was a harvest festival. Mm-hmm. So then you can go up to Machinery Hill where all the new corn shucker combines for 2025 are up and out.
Hey now.
On them.
I got to hit me under that hood.
Exactly. But it is pure joy. Everyone goes. Everyone goes. So it's like you see goth kids walk in. Nobody's like, I'm too cool for the fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so awesome.
I love this because Elliot, you had such informed questions about Minnesota, and I'm learning so much. Every time I meet someone from Minnesota, I feel like a racist. I'm like, do the accent. I want to hear you.
You might hear that. So here's the deal.
She's like, can I touch your hair?
Oh.
Hey, look, my tan is better than yours.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what you're doing.
That's what I'm doing.
This is
Jasmine.
but it's okay. Here's what I really enjoy. talking to black people. I don't often get to talk to black people.
Oh.
So when you
yeah.
invite me, I feel like I'm at the cookout. And so I really enjoy that. I will be bringing the raisin potato salad, and it's going to be great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. To the cookout.